Good evening, you're watching News Mongolian World. I'm your host, Taner Gambatr. And for top stories, Mongolia fully complies with 40 FATF recommendations. 13,000 citizens of Mongolia reside and work in Australia. And 80 new public buses were imported. And for the news, stay tuned. Mongolia was released in October 2020 from the Financial Action Task Force list of countries lacking strategies to combat money laundering and terrorist financing, or the grey list, and is obliged to implement the 40 recommendations issued by the FATF International Standards for Combating Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing and the Financing of Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction. Thus, in 2023, by improving the rating of recommendation of Mongolia, it has become the first country in Asia and the Pacific to fully comply with the 40 FATF recommendations.
On July 13, 2023, the Asia-Pacific Group on Money Laundering discussed and approved Mongolia's progress report in respect of the technical implementation of Recommendation 8 related to non-profit organization of FATF's 40 recommendations. According to FATF's Recommendation 8, member states are responsible for preventing the risk of non-profit organizations being used to finance terrorism and meeting the relevant requirements. At the meeting, the evaluation of technical implementation of Recommendation 8, which had previously been rated as half-implemented, was successfully upgraded to fully implemented. Thus, by improving the rating of Recommendation 8, Mongolia has become the first country in Asia and the Pacific to fully comply with the 40 FATF recommendations, according to the updated rating of Recommendation 15, and the fifth country in the world. Significant progress in the measures undertaken in the field of combating money laundering and terrorist financing from Mongolian side was pointed out. The National Council for Combating Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing is headed by Nyambatar, Minister of Justice and Internal Affairs, and requires the cooperation and coordination of public and private organizations. For Mongolia, the assessment of full compliance with the 40 recommendations of the FATF is a confirmation from many countries that Mongolia has created a legal environment, reflected the relevant requirements in legislation, and improved regulations.
The Minister of Construction and Urban Development from Mongolia recently visited Australia. Over 13,000 Mongolian citizens have made Australia their home, with a majority finding employment in the construction industry. This reflects a growing economic partnership between two nations.
In recent years, Mongolian individuals have actively participated in significant construction endeavors across Australia. Some of these citizens got together and established their own company and subsequently are operating autonomously. They report that this venture has provided them with valuable experience in constructing modern buildings, roads, and bridges, which they have now brought back to their home country.
It has been 4 years since I arrived in Australia. I've been employed at CBB for 3 years. During the first 2 years, I worked as an on-site administrator. Since my third year, I have been working as a quality engineer. Currently, I'm actively involved as a quality engineer in the construction of the metro tunnel connecting two cities. Furthermore, I'm serving as a specialist in charge of North stations. I have been both working and residing in Australia for 9 years now. Throughout this time, our company has primarily focused on metal frame assembly within the construction industry. However, in recent years, we expanded our operations to include construction using wood. We are delighted that you are returning to Mongolia, eager to contribute personally to the development of our homeland with the wealth of experience you have gained from your time working and residing in Australia.
I'm currently employed as a manager at the Career Go Training Center in Australia. Our center specializes in providing occupational safety and health training, as well as white card courses in Mongolian. These programs are designed for Mongolian individuals who recently arrived in Australia and may not be proficient in English. By enrolling in our courses, you will gain the knowledge and the skills necessary to safeguard yourself from unforeseen accidents, all explained in Mongolian. Additionally, you will become familiar with these essential symbols used in the construction industry. Mongolian citizens are dispersed across various countries, engaging in work and life. Recently, there has been a surge in young Mongolians finding employment, particularly in the engineering and technology sectors. Their expertise and educational background are greatly esteemed in their host countries. The Minister of Construction and Urban Development emphasized the need to harness this potential for the advancement of the nation, advocating for supportive government policies in this regard.
I am truly proud to hear of the active involvement of our Mongolian youth in the construction of high-rise buildings in Australia, as well as their contributions to subway facilities. Mongolian companies have collaboratively worked on the construction of internal tunnels and stations within the subway system. Should Mongolia embark on its own subway project, Australia boasts the most highly educated workforce to undertake such an endeavor. In my view, young individuals who have ventured abroad have garnered a wealth of experience, presenting them with a valuable opportunity to contribute to Mongolia's development. The prospect of Mongolia establishing its own subway system is drawing ever closer, given the readiness of our personnel. It is now crucial for the government to harness these resources, as there is a significant loss incurred by not fully utilizing our internationally trained workforce. Abroad, there is a substantial contingent of young professionals engaged in the fields of IT and construction. Additionally, Mongolians have taken the initiative in establishing a company that offers temporary specialized education, catering to both Mongolian and foreign individuals. Our Mongolian compatriots residing in Australia serve as living proof that with proper investment in skill development, anything is attainable through the application of Mongolian expertise.
The contribution of Mongolian professionals in Australia's construction industry stands as a testament to the flourishing partnership between the two nations. Their experiences and expertise acquired abroad hold immense potential for Mongolia's own development. With strategic policies and continued investment in skill development, this skilled workforce is poised to be a pivotal force in propelling the nation forward.
Out of the 800 buses earmarked for replacement under the Ulaanbaatar Renewal Initiative, 80 have already been imported. These buses have been upgraded to meet the Euro 5 standard and have undergone improvement in various areas to better suit Mongolians' needs. Let's inquire with the official about when these buses will commence public transportation services, what enhancement has been implemented, and how do they differ from other buses. More than 800 buses will be imported in 2023 and the first quarter of 2024 with an investment from the state budget. Before, the 20 D-Mark buses with diesel engines were imported, but today 80 D-Mark buses with diesel engines and Euro 5 engines have been imported. These buses are adapted to the climatic conditions of Mongolia, their frames are reinforced, and additional heating and air conditioning has been installed.
An official clarified the information about 80 new buses that were imported. But now let's ask the drivers about the changes in the bus.
I've been part of the Passenger Transport Union's second camp for 15 years. For 13 of those years, I drove an older bus before switching to a most recent red one. The newly imported buses, in comparison to the older ones, now boast renovated seat heaters, air conditioners, and space heaters. Regarding the second camp, most of the red buses and electric buses have undergone a complete upgrade. To find out if there are any more buses on the way, it's best to check that with the manager. Out of a total of 130 buses, 110 are in use during weekdays. Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here's the international news from our partner agencies. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó on Wednesday rejected claims of meddling in the upcoming Slovakian national elections. Szijjártó is planning to meet with opposition frontrunner Robert Fico, who is also a populist former prime minister.
Speaking at a joint press conference in Vienna with the foreign ministers of Slovakia, Slovenia, Austria and the Czech Republic, Szijjártó called the meeting natural.
And when it comes to meeting former Prime Minister Fico, I'm so surprised about such kind of questions because, if you as a foreign minister visit another country and a former prime minister would like to talk to you, would you reject that? For what reason? Those foreign ministers who are visiting me in Budapest, many of them are meeting opposition leaders, and I take it as natural.
Slovakia's Miroslav Lachovsky disagreed, saying he had a very different idea of what it means to keep good bilateral relations and how to be not involved in a campaign in Slovakia just a couple of days before elections.
I had a communication with Peter about it before. I had a communication with the Hungarian embassy in Bratislava about it. And I must say that my idea about how to keep the good bilateral relations and how to be not involved in a campaign in Slovakia just a couple of days before elections is a very different one. That's all.
Now,
Israel arrested 5 Palestinians in an alleged plot to target and spy on senior Israeli politicians, including Israel's far-right National Security Minister, the country's internal security agency said Wednesday. The Shin Bet Security Service alleged that an Iranian security official living in neighboring Jordan has recruited 3 Palestinians, men in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, and another 2 Palestinian citizens of Israel to get intelligence about several high-profile Israeli politicians.
the alleged targets included National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, a firebrand Israeli settler leader who oversees the country's police force in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's ultra-nationalist government, as well as Yehuda Glick, an American-born far-right Israeli activist and former member of parliament. The alleged plan was foiled by Israeli intelligence officials, the Shin Bet said, without offering evidence. Iran's mission to the United Nations didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on the allegations. Ben-Gvir, who draws inspiration from a racist rabbi, has provoked outrage across the wider Middle East for his particularly hardline policies against the Palestinians. Anti-Arab rhetoric and stunts and frequent public visits to the holiest and most contested site in the Holy Land. The hilltop compound in Jerusalem, revered by Jews as the Temple Mount and by Muslims as the Noble Sanctuary, is at the emotional center of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Glick is a leader in a campaign that pushes for increased Jewish access and prayer rights at the sacred Jerusalem compound, the holiest site in Judaism, home to ancient biblical temples. Today, the compound houses the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam. Since Israel captured the site in 1967, Jews have been allowed to visit but not pray there. Glick survived a 2014 Palestinian assassination attempt. The Shin Bet didn't elaborate on the identity of the Iranian official in Jordan who allegedly orchestrated the plot. He is not in custody and apparently remains at large. But the Shin Bet accused 3 Palestinian men in the West Bank, identified as 47-year-old Murad Kamamaja, 34-year-old Hassam Mojarima, and 45-year-old Ziad Shanti, of gathering intelligence and smuggling weapons into Israel. The security service also said that it charged 2 Palestinian citizens of Israel over their involvement in the plot. It didn't specify how the men planned to target Ben-Gvir and the other politicians. Ben-Gvir claimed that the Palestinian suspects had conspired to assassinate a minister in Israel without clarifying whether he meant himself or another minister. He thanked Israeli security forces for uncovering and capturing what he called the terrorist squad. Ben-Gvir, who has pushed for harsher treatment for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails, also vowed to double down on his hardline policies in response to the revelations. Israel has considered Iran to be its greatest enemy since it became a Shiite theocracy during the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Iran is a main patron of Lebanon's Hezbollah militant group, which Israel considers the most potent military threat on its borders, and also backs Palestinian Islamist militant groups in the Gaza Strip.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.